Hello, and welcome to the Love It
Or hate it.
podcast. Today we are diving into Nietzsche, otherwise known as Nietzsche in the German pronunciation, and we are attempting to answer the age-old question, are we born innocent or guilty? So we're going to see what Nietzsche says about that, if anything.
Here we go. And this piece is Thus Spake Zarathustra. Zarathustra. I'm probably butchering that. It's a book for all or none, and we're taking a very small sliver of the writing out of that. It's actually a four-volume set that he wrote in 1883 to 1885. So we're taking a very small part of it out of that. So
So we're going to be
that's what we got.
reading and discussing the chapter of the Overman. And we're going to see if this helps us answer our question. Are humans born innocent or guilty? If you like philosophy, please subscribe to our channel so you never miss another discussion. And comment below and let us know what you think. All right, ready to dive in?
I'm ready, and I'm doing the exposition, so to speak, or the narration, and you're going to be Zarathustra. Zarathustra. Ugh, Jesus.
Zarathustra.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's German, so you have to sound like you're gargling snot in your mouth when you say the word. So
Okay.
there you go. There we go.
Zarathustra.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Zarathustra.
Get a big mouthful of chewing tobacco and say it. You'll be fine. Um,
Okay.
but anyway, so there we go. All right. Here we go. We ready? When Zarathustra arrived at the nearest town, which adjoined the forest, he found many people assembled in the marketplace, for it had been announced that a rope dancer would give a performance. And Zarathustra spake thus unto the people.
I teach you the Superman. Man is something that is to be surpassed. What have ye done to surpass man? All beings hitherto have created something beyond themselves, and ye want to be the ebb of that great tide, and would rather go back to the beast than surpass man. What is the ape to man? A laughing stock, a thing of shame, and just the same shall man be to the Superman, a laughing stock, a thing of shame. Ye have made your way from the worm to man, and much within you is still worm. Once were ye apes, and even yet man is born of an ape than any of the apes. Even the wildest among you is only a disharmony and hybrid of plant and phantom. But do I bid you become phantoms or plants? Lo, I teach you the Superman. The Superman is the meaning of the earth. Let your will say, the Superman shall be the meaning of earth. I conjure you, my brethren, remain true to the earth, and believe not those who speak unto you of super earthy hopes. Poisoners are they, whether they know it or not. Despisers of life are they, decaying ones, and poisoned ones themselves, of whom the earth is weary. So away with them. Once blasphemy against God was the greatest blasphemy, but God died, and therewith also those blasphemers. To blaspheme the earth is now the dreadfulest sin, and to rate the heart of the unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. Once the soul looked contemptuously on the body, and then that contempt was the supreme thing. The soul wished the body ghastly and famished. Thus it thought to escape from the body and the earth. All that soul was itself ghastly and famished, and cruelty was the delight of that soul. But ye also, my brethren, tell me, what doth your body say about your soul? Is your soul not poverty and pollution and wretched self complacency? Verily, a polluted stream is man. One must be a sea to receive a polluted stream without becoming impure. Lo, I teach you the Superman. He is the sea. In him can your great contempt be submerged. What is the greatest thing ye can experience? Is it the hour of great contempt? The hour in which even your happiness become loathsome, loathsome unto you, and so also your reason and virtue. The hour when we say, what good is my happiness? It is poverty and pollution and wretched self-complacency. But my happiness should justify existence itself. The hour when ye say, what good is my reason? Doth it long for knowledge as the lion for his food? It is poverty and pollution and wretched self-complacency. The hour when ye say, what good is my virtue? As yet it hath not made me passionate. How weary I am of my good and my bad. It is all poverty and pollution and wretched self-complacency. The hour when ye say, what good is my justice? I do not see that I am fervor and fuel. The just, however, are fervor and fuel. The hour when ye say, what good is my pity? Is not pity the cross on which he is nailed, who loveth the man? But my pity is not a crucifixion. Have ye ever spoken thus? Have ye ever cried thus? Ah, would that I had heard you crying this. It is not your sin. It is your self-satisfaction that crieth unto heaven. Your very sparingness in sin crieth unto heaven. Where is the lightning to lick you with its tongue? Where is the frenzy with which ye should be inoculated? Lo, I teach you the Superman. He is that lightning. He is that frenzy.
When
When
Zarathustra had thus spoken, one of the people called out, we have now heard enough of the rope dancer. It is time now for us to see him. All the people laughed at Zarathustra, but the rope dancer, who thought the words applied to him, began his performance. Zarathustra, however, looked at the people and wondered. Then he spake thus.
man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Superman, a rope over an abyss, a dangerous crossing, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous trembling and halting. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. What is lovable in man is that he is an overgoing and a downgoing. I love those that know not how to live except as downgoers, for they are the overgoers. I love the great despisers because they are the great adorers and arrows of longing for the other shore. I love those who do not first seek a reason beyond the stars for going down and being sacrifices, but sacrifice themselves to the earth, that the earth of the Superman may hereafter arrive. I love him who liveth in order to know, and seeketh to know in order that the Superman may hereafter live. Thus seeketh he his own down going. I love him who laboreth and inventeth that he may build the house for the Superman and prepare for him earth, animal, and plants, for thus seeketh he his own down going. I love him who loveth his virtue, for virtue is the will to down going and an arrow of longing. I love him who reserveth no share of spirit for himself, but wanteth to be wholly the spirit of his virtue. Thus walketh he as spirit over the bridge. I love him who maketh his virtue his inclination and destiny. Thus, for the sake of his virtue, he is willing to live on or live no more. I love him who desireth not too many virtues. One virtue is more of a virtue than two, because it is more of a knot for one's destiny to cling to. I love him whose soul is lavish, who wanteth no thanks and doth not give back, for he always bestoweth and desireth not to keep for himself. I love him who is ashamed when the dice fall in his favor, and who then asketh, am I a dishonest player? For he is willing to succumb. I love him who scattereth golden words in advance of his deeds, and always doeth more than he promised, for he seeketh his own down going. I love him who justifieth the future ones and redeemeth the past ones, for he is willing to succumb through the present ones. I love him who chasteneth his God, because he loveth his God, for he must succumb through the wrath of his God. I love him whose soul is deep, even in the wounding, and may succumb through a small matter. Thus goeth he willingly over the bridge. I love him whose soul is so overfull that he forgetteth himself, and all things are in him. Thus all things become his downgoing. I love him who is of a free spirit and a free heart. Thus is his head only the bowels of his heart. His heart, however, causeth his downgoing. I love all who are likely heavy drops falling one by one out of the dark cloud that lowereth over man. They herald the coming of the lightning and succumb as heralds. Lo, I am a herald of the lightning, and a heavy drop out of the cloud. The lightning, however, is the Superman.
Dun dun dun.
All right.
What do you think?
I feel
It's
like it's
different.
a lot to unpack. Um, I uh, I feel like I love this because it's definitely thought-provoking. It's provocative.
Mhm.
I like the idea of uh trying to attain this sort of super being, right? Trying to become the best version of yourself. Because
Mhm.
that's really all we can do in life. If, if we want to live a good life, all we can really do is our best. So to become the best version of ourselves, to rise above like mediocrity and pettiness and but I also like how he just says, I loveth. It's like no matter where you are on your path, you're still worth loving. He loves
I
everyone.
yeah, I got it that it
But
was. It does seem like it's the Sermon on the Mount, though, right? It has that feel. But instead of saying "Blessed is he says "I loveth," because he's not Christ, so he can't say you're blessed for doing it. He can just say "I love this person," because it's the character Zarathustra is not Christ. So he
yeah,
has to just say, and God's dead in this story. God has died.
right.
Nietzsche's famous for
So
that, for pronouncing that.
right. So he's basically saying, so to me this is a little preachy, kind of like Sermon on the Mount,
Hmm.
but in some ways it's opposite because he's saying that God is dead to create your own meaning in life. So he's sort of rejecting herd mentality. He's rejecting conformity, and he's sort of saying, create your own meaning, will like follow your own will. Um,
Hmm.
at least that's how I interpret it. Create your own values. And the biggest obstacle in life is self overcoming. So overcoming your um, kind of mediocrity, overcoming kind of the flaws of a human to become a superhuman.
Hmm.
Um, so it does challenge the notion of what herd mentality is and invites us to think about how can we become the best version of ourselves, or at least that's just how I interpret it. So to me, it's quite different from Sermon on the Mount.
I,
Um,
I, I think it's just similar in that he's, because that's Jesus has that part where he's blessed is this, blessed is that, blessed, and
Yes,
this
in
guy is,
that
I
way,
love
yeah.
this, I love that, I love
Yeah.
this, I love that. It seems like it's got that same cadence. And it's I don't know, but I like because he starts out with it being ape and man, and there's actually another philosopher's books called uh, Ape of Man. I think that's the title of the book. But anyway, he's separating that out. That's you're not wanted anymore. You're not that just like we are to an ape. That an ape is a laughing stock as an example of man.
Yeah.
That we have to rise above that. What's that? It's if you imitate someone, that's the highest form of flattery. But for the person doing the imitation, it's an insult because you'll never actually be that person. You'll always just be a canard of
Yeah.
what you wanted to be. And I guess he's kind of saying that that's like the ape is that's that's the most base, and that we're Oberman, we're Superman. So we're supposed to carry ourselves differently. We're supposed to, like you say, suffer on your own merit to try to make yourself the best. What they that guy Jordan Peterson in his books, The 12 Rules for Life, he says that you're supposed to clean your room. That's the best advice you can give somebody is clean your room because you can go out in the street and you can protest and you can try to be some sort of a civil rights person or what have you, but you got to take care of your own house first. You got to clean
Yeah.
your own room first, get your shit in order, and then go out and try to save the world. But most people don't. They're too busy telling other people how they should live, preaching like a
Yeah.
Jesus character instead of working on their person first and getting their self in order. Get
Yeah.
your own house in order first. So yeah, um, it's interesting. Nietzsche kind of has gotten a raw deal in history because he's kind of known for being a sexist, and the Nazis adopted him quite a bit, which kind of sucks because that kind of ruins him. It makes everybody kind of have a bad taste in their mouth about him. But he's got some interesting pieces. This is very late in his life when he wrote this, though.
Yeah.
So
What
yeah.
I like about it is it seems to suggest to challenge assumptions, question assumptions, and then embrace life's challenges.
Mhm.
And even those of us who are just sort of mediocre, to still
Mhm.
love your fellow man, but strive to be more than just decent, strive to be more than just average, strive to be a superman, strive to be the best that you
Mhm.
can be with what limited knowledge we have access to. And it's also sort of touching on moral relativism. It's sort of suggesting that morality is more relative than like
Mhm.
concrete, which I can kind of appreciate. But what do you think this says about our question? Do you think it says anything about are humans born innocent or guilty?
I think it means people. I think a man is born guilty, and that
Okay.
he's trying to draw people out of the muck and mire. I honestly thought that because he's like the anti-God type person, I thought it would take the other direction because the Sermon on the Mount seemed like it was talking about that you needed to be better, but that one seemed like it turned out to be that you were good and that he's going to help you be better. And this one seems like that you're born like crap. Oh, there's a quote in here that I think is a really clever statement, and I think it's worth unpacking. Is I I love him who desireth not too many virtues. One virtue is more than a virtue. Or, excuse me. One virtue is more of a virtue than two. I think that's interesting. I think that's a really clever way to describe virtue. That if you, how could you be virtuous if you were trying to acquire a multitude of them? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's such a, and what because it is more of a knot for one's destiny to cling to.
Hmm.
That's such a, I don't know. I think that's just a beautiful sentiment. It seems to explain virtue is a hard thing to explain,
Yeah.
and that seems like it explains it well. That one virtue is more than two because it's more of a knot to cling to. That's very pretty. Um,
Yeah, well, it's more
yeah.
of like a focused, direct path. And it's sort of saying that if you're greedy in your virtues, that's not
Mhm.
really a virtue to just say, I want to pursue all the virtues. It also
Mhm.
seems to suggest like pursuing all the virtues is kind of unrealistic. But if you focus on just one, then your
Mhm.
path is very direct and focused and realistic.
I
Um,
I got it as like if you I don't know like what is it? Patience is a virtue,
yeah.
um, and then I'm trying to think. Humbleness is a virtue, but if somebody were humble and then fought to get another one and said that they were more virtuous now that they have the two virtues, that they're actually they've lost the plot. Like they don't get it because that's not
Yeah.
the point. The point, I don't know. I don't know. I think I agree with you, and then I disagree at the same time. I don't know. It's just such a, it's a very philosophical way to. It's one of those statements that I have to think about for a while to really get a grip on it. But it's pretty because it's like it explains it, but at the same time, it posits a question in there. I just
Yeah.
like that. I like that so much. It's so pretty.
Well, I think
Um,
what he might be getting at too is that if you could simplify your virtue as just becoming the overman, becoming the superman, that covers all the virtues, right?
could be, yeah.
So instead of saying, oh, I'm pursuing 10 virtues, I'm pursuing one virtue that's sort of like an umbrella for all of them,
Sure. I get
maybe.
you.
Because if you're
Yeah, I get
pursuing to
you.
be like the Superman, the best version of yourself, that covers every virtue, you know?
I got
So,
you. Would you say it's fair that if somebody said I acquired a second virtue, so I'm more virtuous, that they would not, that means that they don't understand what virtue means, right?
well, if you're acquiring virtue, so you know
I'm
this
saying
term,
as if they're just yeah,
yeah.
like
So if you
individual, you
know
know what I
this
mean?
term like
Making
virtue signaling, like,
yeah, there you go. There you go.
yeah, that whole
Yeah.
term virtue signaling, I have mixed feelings about because if you were advertising that, hey, look at me, I'm virtuous, then you start
Hmm.
to question, are you really virtuous or are you just you care more about how people perceive you than the virtue itself? But on the other hand, like I would rather someone be like virtue signaling than showing that they're doing something bad because to me, when I see someone doing something good or virtuous, it can motivate me to want to do that same thing. So I don't know why some people are so adamant these days in modern society to like ridicule people who virtue signal, you know, unless they're saying that if you're virtue signaling, it undermines what the virtue is. But I don't necessarily think that's true because just because you're doing something virtuous and you're sharing it with other people, hey, look at what I'm doing. If your intention, if your intention is to show off, then yeah, that's vain. But if your intention is just to try to encourage other people to be virtuous with you, then that's a virtuous thing. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Hold on. I got it. Uh I love him whose soul is lavish, who wanteth no thanks and doth not give back. For he also always bestoweth and desireth not to keep for himself. So I think that's there you go. There you go. Thank you. So Kimberly just spake.
That kind of
It's
sums up in his words what I was trying to say.
yeah, it's pretty though. So this is 1800s, middle 1800s. So this is if a lot of people credit Nietzsche was saying, you know, God is dead, and I'll give Nietzsche a whole lot of credit that if that's true, if he believed that, he certainly plowed on the right direction by trying to put a piece of something out that somebody could use. Um, you can't just do away with a religion if it's a crutch for people. You have to have something else to prop them up, so to speak. Otherwise, you're kind of you're disconnecting them from their world. So if he really believed that, maybe this is his attempt at that. But I'll give him credit for it. It's pretty. It's philosophical. It's not damning, and it's something that I think somebody could sit on and use to be a better person.
Yeah.
The Nazis obviously went a different direction. But you know, there's that. But you know, but I don't. Nietzsche wasn't a Nazi at all. But you know, he just got railroaded in his old age. But he wrote this when he was very old. But it's interesting. I think it's a very pretty piece. I don't know. I think it means that we're born guilty. To be honest.
I feel like it's mostly saying it's irrelevant to question if we're born innocent or guilty because I feel like what he's saying transcends worrying about if we're innocent or guilty. And but he doesn't believe in original sin. So if he's saying God is dead, then he wouldn't believe in original sin. So he's not saying we're born guilty,
I don't
but
know.
he's also not saying we're
Do
born innocent.
you work that out? I mean, if you believe God is dead, then that means God lived at one point, so there would have been original sin. Still.
Well, I mean, or God never existed. Like the notion of God is dead. Like God
Sure.
never existed.
When he says God is dead, I think he's making a historical point. I like that point because I think that's a very apropos way to look at history. You have a very large chunk of our past where, depending on where you are in the world, there's Allah or Muhammad, there's Jesus, there's the Buddha. That if you don't know if you don't believe that God is alive in that time period, you wouldn't understand that history at all. You wouldn't understand the mechanizations, why people are doing what they're doing in that time period,
Mhm.
why they're having those wars, why there's the squabbles there where they are. If you didn't believe that the God existed in that time period, because they certainly believed that was true, uh, everybody believed that, so it might as well have been true. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. If everybody thinks you shot the person in the room, you're going to jail for that. You're guilty for that. You're
Yeah.
going to go to jail for it. You're the only one that disagrees. Who cares? By Nietzsche saying that God is dead, I think that's that turn of the century thinking where you had a lot of Renaissance thinking that had come out at the time and or was moving forward, and people were openly questioning that to where it was very possible that you had large swaths of the world where people didn't think that God existed, and that starts to make the history different. When you read the history, you don't have to assume everybody thinks God exists.
Right.
Um, yeah,
I
if
think,
you'd have read French history during this time period, you probably would have gotten a lot of the opposite. It
yeah.
would have been very different thinking. So, yeah, God is dead in that he did live, but I don't know. If he died, then maybe he never was omnipotent. I don't
Uh-huh.
know, but
I think most people who use that phrase, God is dead, is just a phrase not to be taken literally. They're not saying God used to be alive and then he died. They're just saying
mhm.
God, the notion of
Sure.
God is a dinosaur. The notion of God is dead because God
Mhm.
never existed in the first place. I think that's what they're saying.
That's fair. I mean, that's
So
yeah, that's the point I was making is that it's in history, God existed for a long time, but in not too distant past,
the
God,
notion of God, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, he existed. He might as well have existed. It doesn't matter. I mean, he might
Well,
as well have existed.
the belief
Yeah.
in God existed. So essentially, when someone's saying God is dead, they're basically just saying the belief of God is dead.
No,
But
I get you. I get
they're
you.
not saying like literally he was alive and then he died.
No,
Like,
but I guess that's the point I'm making is that it wouldn't matter if he was or he wasn't. In that time period, he just as well could have. It wouldn't matter because the history seems to think that he did, and so I think that he probably did. Um, it's more likely than not that he did exist in that time period. He existed enough in the hearts and minds that he did exist. Like I say, everybody in the room said you were the shooter. You're the shooter. But from a like a realistic standpoint, no, probably not. It's like germ theory didn't exist until a certain not too long ago. So, but it did.
yeah,
But we acted like it didn't for a
yeah.
long time. And it might as well not have existed then. It might as well have been ghosts making you sick and not germs. So I don't know. But so you don't think this means that we're guilty? That we're guilty from the jump
Well, I
in
feel
the
like
question?
this I feel like this text doesn't directly address that question. Are humans
Mhm.
born guilty or innocent? But I feel like what Nietzsche is saying is that it doesn't matter if we were born guilty or innocent. It doesn't matter. All that matters is living the best life we can, living boldly, embracing challenges, embracing struggles, and being the best version of yourself. So it doesn't matter whether we were born guilty or innocent. That's kind of what I feel like it's saying. But because he doesn't believe in original sin, he's definitely not saying humans are born guilty. But I don't think he's necessarily saying we're born like the ape, right?
Mhm.
And are apes innocent or guilty?
Well, it
They're
says,
kind of
"You,
neutral.
what ye have made your way from the worm to man, and much within you is still worm. Once we ye apes, and even yet man is more of an ape than any of the apes." And then he says, "Lo, I teach you the Superman." That's why I feel like if he's teaching us, that he assumes that we're just apes. We're kind of running around. We're wanton,
Yeah.
aimless. But it's interesting that all of these pieces that we're looking at, whether or not they think you're guilty or innocent, all of them are positing the idea that man doesn't have a direction, and they're
Yeah.
giving us one, which is
Yeah.
nice. And maybe the lacking direction is the guilt.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's sort
yeah.
of like he's saying instead of coveting a religion or following a religion, why
Mhm.
not just create your own meaning and follow that and be the best version of that you can be as the Superman. So he's sort of like creating his own religion here. He's basically saying like follow my Superman religion instead of
Mhm.
you know.
Hold on. Once blasphemy against God was the greatest blasphemy, but God died, and therewith also those blasphemies. So that's not a blasphemy anymore. To blaspheme the earth is now the dreadfulest sin, and to rate the heart of an unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. Hold on. And to rate the heart of the unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. So I guess God's dead, so it's not a blasphemy. But if you put another God in that spot, that's blasphemy. You
Yeah.
put that over your own earth and your own. That's I don't know. You might could get like a Greenpeace kind of thing for this. You know,
But the
up your
irony,
trash.
I
What's
feel like
that?
the irony of this is that it's a little bit contradictory because he's saying, you know, there is no meaning, but I'm teaching you something that could be your new meaning, your new direction in life. Like I'm trying to give you direction in life, yet I'm also saying nothing matters. So it's sort of like looking at nihilism in a way that still gives people a reason to live.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of ironic what he's saying because he's saying like um, blasphemy doesn't exist, and if you so follow me. He's basically saying like follow me, follow, try to be a Superman, try to be an overman, which could be seen as kind of like a religion without calling it religion.
Mm-hmm. What's
Like the
they said
anti-religion religion.
if you what if you scratch um a sadist, you get an optimist. Because right underneath the layer of a sadist is an optimist. Because when somebody walks around and they're constantly negative and casting aspersions on everything around them, they're actually an optimist at heart because they really want it to be great, but it isn't to them. They think it's bad. They think it's they think it's negative. So
Mhm.
if somebody's negative, like I say, you get an idealist, there's an idealist like under that. So I don't know. Uh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what he is, that he's a nihilist, like he thinks nothing matters, but the words kind of give him away that he really thinks everything matters. You know what I mean?
Well,
I
he's
don't know.
saying nothing matters except accepting that nothing matters. So he's basically saying conform to the nonconformists. So what he's saying, there's a contradiction in what he's saying. So it can be looked at as a paradox, or it can be looked at as flawed logic.
Well, could be. I mean, if you, like I say, if you're a nihilist, it to say nothing matters doesn't mean that you can't try to shove matter into it. I mean, if I was a nihilist because I thought the world was that way, that nothing I do really matters, that'd be different. But if I was a nihilist and I just thought there's nothing matters in the world, but I'm going to try to make a difference, I
Hmm.
could think the world is nihilistic, but I'm optimistic that I can change it, kind of thing. Maybe, in other words, maybe because Zarathustra in the story, he was in a cave for a long time, and he came out of the cave and went out to teach people. So he had his little coming to Jesus moment in the cave, I guess. So he
Yeah.
was in a cave and talked to Satan, whereas Jesus was on a hillside or something. I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that. And then Buddha went for a long walk on his property. I think that's how his went, right? Isn't that how Buddha
Hmm.
did his? The
Yeah.
skinny Buddha, not the fat one. The skinny one came first, then the fat one came second. I mean, that's the differences, right? But I don't know. It's interesting. I like Nietzsche. I think he's fun. He's a fun character. He has an interesting way of going about things. I like a lot of his writing though. So I don't know. We're definitely not any closer, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's more of just he doesn't really give a clear blueprint either of how to be an overman or a superman. But it's more of like an ideal
Hmm.
that isn't totally clear. Like he's saying, try to live up to this ideal, even though nothing really matters. So,
I love him who justifieth the future ones and redeemeth the past ones, for he is willing to succumb through the present ones. I don't know.
yeah,
It's
so much
interesting.
of what he says, it's like he's basically saying that you have to have opposing viewpoints coexist at the same time.
That's fair.
And which I understand, but why? I don't know. I
Hmm.
feel like this whole little Superman concept and what he's saying, I feel like he's just contradicting himself so much that it's hard to be inspired by, you
Hmm.
know? Like reading this doesn't really inspire me, and it also doesn't really help me answer that question because he's not really saying humans are born innocent or guilty. He's just saying that question is irrelevant, uh, kind of to me.
I get you. I get you. Well, so we're not necessarily any closer to answering the question, but we have more, even more material to from which to draw our ideas. I honestly, while you were talking a second ago, I was thinking that even if in any one of these works, if we actually just found a sentence that said you
Mhm.
are born guilty or you are born innocent, I don't think I would trust it.
No.
If we just found, in other words, if we just found the direct answer to our question somewhere in here, I don't think I would trust that. That would be the one I would be most suspicious of. I would rather them talk around it to where I kind of found the center myself. But if somebody
Yeah.
just points to it, I'm not going to take it. I won't take it. It's too well crafted.
Yeah.
It's like that's the thing in uh, I guess logic is if it's too convenient, maybe it's suspicious. It should be suspicious. You know, if it's that convenient, maybe it's a little suspicious.
Yeah.
So we're going to be chewing gum through most of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
But even though this doesn't like directly answer the question, it does help us think more about it and think more about how Nietzsche might have answered the question if we had asked
Hmm.
him, which is fun. And what I will say about this is I really do love the idea. I say this a lot when I teach yoga
Hmm.
that all we can do is try to be the best version of ourselves. So whatever that means to you. And I do love the idea of just instead of worrying about like a meaning that we can all agree on, because chances are we may never all agree that on one meaning to life. But if you can create your own meaning and enjoy life, creating your own meaning, then that gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of fulfillment. So,
Yeah. What's the Marcus Aurelius? You beat people by not being like them. So if you think something's bad, then you should not be that. So yeah, be a better person. That's how you win out in the world is to be the best kind of person you can be. Certainly fine with that. I think
yeah,
that's a
but
good
it,
idea.
it also also
And
suggests that
stretch. This is yoga. Or stretch.
but it also suggests that we should focus more on ourselves and less on other people. So instead of worrying about what everyone else thinks, just create your own meaning, be the best version of yourself you can be, instead of like trying to tell other people what to believe or trying to impose your beliefs on other people.
Yeah. Nietzsche says in one of his other writings, I'm going to butcher this, grasp me close, your crutch I am not. And he's talking about trying, like, I'm going to be the best person I can be. Nothing wrong, grab onto me. And I mean, I'm going to be better and I'll take you with me kind of thing, but I'm not your crutch. You know what I mean? Don't lean, you know what I mean? Like I can give you a hand, but I'm not going to, I give you a hand, I give you help, but I can't push you there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's ultimate.
Always liked that quote. And I think that kind of is, maybe that's on the same lines of what you're talking about. It's trying to be the
Yeah,
best person you can be. Yeah.
it
But don't,
encourages
yeah.
self-responsibility. Like
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have to rely on yourself. You
A
can't
hand
rely
up
on
and not a
other
hand out
people.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so instead of following like a false god or following a religion, tune into yourself and follow like what feels right for you, like your own
Hmm.
internal compass. So,
Hmm.
which is,
Yeah.
I think, an interesting idea and it makes sense. So I like that aspect of Nietzsche's writing. But comment
Mhm.
below, let us know what you think of this concept of the Superman or the Overman. And yeah, let us know if you want us to dive deeper into more of Nietzsche's works. And
Yes, there's a bunch of it. He wrote a lot. He's
I,
German, so he wrote a ton of stuff. Yeah, they
yeah,
always do. Germans and Russians write a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll be doing a live stream at the end of the month where we'll be sort of examining all the different texts that we've read to try to answer that question, are humans born innocent or guilty? So stay tuned for that and subscribe, share this video with anyone you think might find it interesting. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think that
And yeah. Go ahead.
what?
Sorry, I was going to say we got a whole lot of really cool philosophers coming up.
Yeah,
So whole lot more.
yes. So
So
stay tuned for more philosophy and yeah, stay curious, stay open-minded, keep thinking, keep asking questions, and be the best version you can be of yourself.
please.
All right. Bye.